Hey there, good morning. Oscar Jaramillo here. I'm the CEO of ResultsIQ. I'm just really glad that you can make it today. Thanks for hopping in early. We're just going to get started in a couple minutes, but I want to give at least 1 or 2 minutes to the people that are still joining. Again, if you already joined, make sure you drop a comment. I want to know where you're from, where you at today, where are you in this big, beautiful planet. So just drop a comment. Let me know where you're coming from today while we wait for the rest of the people to join. All right, I got my coffee ready as well. While we wait here for 1 more minute, we do have a lot of content today that we want to cover with everyone. So I'm going to go kind of fast, but I want to make sure that we have your absolute attention. So if you have any tabs that you're open, if maybe you're working on something else, maybe this is the time to put that away and be fully present here. Grab your coffee. Again, close those extra tabs. We're about to dive into something that is just going to make your setup, your hotspot setup a lot better. Okay. Let's just give our people 1 more minute. And again, we're all humans here, so we're trying out this new platform combined with YouTube Stream. So if you're not able to leave comments, that's okay. You know, we'll talk later. But for now, we're gonna give 1 more minute here, and we're gonna wait, and we'll get started here in a second. All right, here we go. All right, exactly. We're waiting until 10:03, so a couple more minutes here, or I'm sorry, a couple more seconds, and we'll get rolling here. Again, I'm seeing, getting some notes that you're not able to leave comments on the YouTube stream. That's okay. You know, we wanted to know where you were from, and there's going to be an interactive part that you're going to be doing on your own. We'll figure that out. That's okay. All right, so we're gonna get started now. So if we can go to the next slide, please. Awesome, thank you. So first let me introduce myself. I'm Oscar Jaramillo. Again, I'm the CEO of ResultsIQ, a hotspot agency partner that helps marketing and revenue leaders optimize their hotspot setup to align teams, align data, and drive measurable growth. We've been doing this for a while. So as you can see, we have been a hotspot partner for a long time. We started as a marketing agency and eventually evolved throughout the years. In 2011, we were one of the first partners to become officially certified through HubSpot as a partner that does implementation, onboarding. We also, in 2024, were one of the very few agencies in the US that have been accredited by HubSpot, meaning that they review our projects, they look at our quality standards, our implementation standards, and they gave us accreditation to be able to implement HubSpot across CMS, marketing, sales, service, and operations, which is now Data Hub, as we all know, as well as the new Commerce Hub. With that being said, we do have deep integration expertise. So whether it's a native integration to any of the big platforms, so Shopify, NetSuite, Microsoft Dynamics, you call it, we've done it, we know how to do it. And not only we can do native integrations, but we can also do custom integrations for you and your team. So again, custom integrations through APIs, webhooks, we can help you out. So now, before we move on, I want to talk about what's changing, right? So if you had the opportunity to attend Inbound this year, there's a lot of talk about AI. And what does AI ready, like a company that is AI ready, look like? And where do you go from step one, or how do you get from step one to the step where you actually are using AI to your benefit. Okay. Second, all right. So I'm going to cover the agenda real quick. Again, this is the first time using this setup, so I'm seeing a little bit of comments coming through on some of the things that are not loading as fast. Hopefully, you can see me. Hopefully, you can hear me clearly. But hey, we're working through technology. We're humans. We're talking about AI, but we're humans, right? We all, make mistakes, and hopefully, at least I'm coming to you clearly. But I want to cover what we're going to do today, right? So first, we are breaking this down into three major steps, right? The first step is evaluating your hotspot data health, right? So what are some of the gaps, or how do you spot some of the big gaps that you may have in your CRM today that are slowing you down? And forget about AI, right? We go into accounts every single week, and there's always big issues, right? So there's duplication issues, there's formatting issues, there's massive amounts of properties that are not being used and created by people. So there's not a lot of data maturity there. So we're going to talk about data health, because everything that is AI related is going to be connected to your data. If your data is not good, and you don't know how your data quality is going to impact the AI usage, then you have issues. Okay. We're going to do an AI readiness deep dive. So what does it mean to be ready, right, for AI? Where are we at in this journey, right? It's multiple steps, right, to be ready to adopt one of these tools. I know for firsthand, I was at Inbound in San Francisco, and it sounds very nice. It sounds great to be able to turn on an agent and let it work for you. But as we all know, it's not as easy, right? So it's beyond the setup. There needs to be awareness. There needs to be goals. There needs to be stuff that is set up in order for you to function and leverage the AI the way it's meant to be. And then lastly, our last step is building your AI readiness roadmap, right? So we want you to walk away with an idea of what it could look like in a framework, so that by the end of the session, you know where you stand in your CRM, and then what to do next in order to make AI actually work for you. Okay, let's go next. All right, so before we go deeper into this journey, I want you to think, where do you stand right now in your HubSpot AI journey? Again, we heard all this amazing news from HubSpot in September through Inbound, before Inbound, at Inbound, and after Inbound, through all these amazing agents, right? There's a marketplace, there's freeze, there's AI assistants, and there's co-pilots. But I want you to think about where you stand in your journey, right? Your company or yourself, you may be AI curious right now, right? You're curious, you're testing, some tools. Maybe you're playing, you or your team is playing with ChatGPT, Claude. Maybe they're using Gemini for, prospect research, or preparing for certain meetings, or, writing emails, which is what everybody does, right? We know it. I know it. I do it. We always want to run our emails through ChatGPT to see if it can come up with something better, right? So with that being said, you could be AI curious, and that's okay. That's where everyone starts, and that's where most people are at today. They're just testing, it's not integrated, it's isolated out solutions and so on. So maybe you're a little bit ahead. Maybe you're getting started, right? So maybe you're using HubSpot, building AI tools. Maybe you're using the social media agent, or you're using the content assistant to help you create, better copy, for your social media, your emails, your blogs. Maybe that's where you're at, right? So that could be that you're testing assistants. Again, ShotSpot was the one that was last year. That was pretty big on CRM queries. Breeze right now, being able to create, reports for you. But again, maybe you're just getting started, right? You're using all these tools with no set strategy. You're just leveraging the tools for what they are today. But you want more, right? You want to continue going through this journey, right? But there could be companies out here that are also building momentum, where, hey, now we're beyond that, right? We're not just testing and playing with tools here and there whenever I feel like it, but it's actually AI, right? HubSpot AI is actually part of our daily workflows, right? We've seen companies already using the customer AI agent, right, to solve a lot of the initial ticketing, problems that they were having, right? Massive amounts of tickets that come in, right? And it was taking them 2 to 3 days for them to be able to get back to those clients and work those tickets through their triage and their help desk. Now, customer agent is able to point out the solutions, give it the right answer. So again, maybe you're actually building momentum at this point where not only AI is part of your daily workflow, but it's actually going ahead and supporting that customer experience, right? Improving that customer experience. Now, we do have, this is not common, and this will be kind of like the last step here. We do have companies, and we've seen them leading the way, right? So they have fully integrated systems, right? So if they're using an external tool, that tool is not a standalone tool. It's integrated to HubSpot. It's feeding insights. It's feeding data, whether it's unstructured or structured. It's feeding that data to power AI excellence, to power those AI agents. So that's essentially the goal, right? That's where we all want to be. Ideally, at some point in 2026, but most likely not until the end of 2026, right? A lot of this is not overnight, and a lot of this is step by step, like I said. So you could be there. Again, AI is amazing if you got it working the right way, if it's set up the right way. But if not, then what's the point of activating an agent that is just going to create noise, is going to demotivate your team, and people are just going to not use it, right? That's not what you want to do here, right? So with that, whatever you are in this step, right, this session is just built to move you forward, okay? So now, with that being said, I wanted to make this a little bit interactive. I know the comment section in YouTube is not working, and that's okay, right? This is more about a self-assessment. This is not about you letting me know where you stand. So let's just make this interactive, and I want you to take a minute to score yourself across the 7 key areas. And this is sort of the framework that when we're looking at clients and they want to implement AI, whether it's a simple agent or they want to look at the whole operation, revenue operation, and say, hey, how can we use all these agents that we're currently paying for? How can we use them to our benefit, right? This is sort of the framework that we use, and we divide this up in 7 key areas. Now, when you go through this, what you want to do is you want to ask yourself some of these questions, and you want to score each section from 1 to 5. 1 is, like I said, hey, very low, I'm not ready, we don't have a defined strategy vision. And 5 is like, yeah, we just have a upside, earlier this year, we have a clear defined strategy. We know what our organization is going to leverage AI, how it's going to do it, and it's being communicated across the organization. That is a 5, right? That's a clear 5 for that specific section, right? So I'm going to show you the first 4, and then I'm going to give you a few seconds here so that you can write this down or take notes on the questions to score yourself, and then we're going to show you the next 3. So the strategy again is: do you have a clear AI vision, right? Has this been communicated formally? Is there any metrics or goals that you have? For business impact, right? How we identify where AI can add value, right? It's not about activating and turning on tools and let's integrate that and let's do that and let this one person try that out. It's about being very intentional about what AI could do and where this is going to come in to impact your business and how we're going to measure that impact, right? So it needs to be tracked, right? If you don't measure it, it's not going to happen, right? Operations, same thing, are those workflows, right? Do we have clearly mapped out our processes where we can see visually where AI can go in and do decision making for us, right? So again, we're not talking about co-pilots or assistants. We're talking about real AI that can do work for your team, right? That can think for your team to a certain extent, right? And then data readiness, right? How we evaluate it if we're ready, right? What we were saying earlier, data hygiene, never mind, talking about AI, is our database clean enough for us to even consider something like this, or do we need to do that cleanup work first, right? All right, so these are the first 4 areas. Remember, you score each section 1 to 5, depending on where you stand. Okay. Don't look at the scoring guy there yet, but look at the last 3 sections, right? Governance, right? we know, right? There needs to be rules, there needs to be controls, there needs to be what we call in Sigma, in Lean Six Sigma, foolproofing, right? Because otherwise, do we want our teams to start feeding all this critical confidential data to AI without no governance, right? No policies, no approvals, right? There needs to be some rules and some ownership to this. So again, I know we all make the mistake, right? We go so easily go into ChatGPT and hey, rewrite this proposal, or how will you address this gap, or how will you do that, right? But where is that data going, right? Is it being used to teach and train the model, right? Is this now public data? So if you're sharing your pricing to rewrite an email, is now your pricing available to the public, right? In terms of your competitors, and can they have an edge on you because of that, right? So defining governance, thinking about your technology. Again, we're focusing this session in HubSpot. Hopefully all of you are either considering using HubSpot as your CRM, or have it already, looking to optimize it after this. But the technology, right? So if we have multiple technologies such as an ERP, a WMS, an inventory management system, an e-com store, how do we connect those technologies so that everything's flowing seamlessly, right? You want to make sure that you're giving enough context and data to AI so that it can actually do good for you, right? And then lastly, I'm going to talk about people and culture, right? Thinking about, and this is a real question, right? Think about the people that you have in your team today, right? How do we help build capacity and capability within our teams so they can actually be champions for these programs, right? If I go and pick someone today and say, hey, Mr. BDR, or marketing manager, I want you to activate the social media AI agent today, and I want to let go of our social media person because that's going to replace this person. That's not the way to think it, right? The way to think it is enabling and making sure that people understand how this tool is going to 3x, 5x, 10x their output, right? It's going to make their job easier. There's going to be less thinking because these AI agents are there to support. So again, change management, thinking through where your organization stand in terms of maturity and the learn, and how much have they learned so far about AI, and how do you get them there? So that's why I said earlier, if you're thinking that, hey, I'm going to have all these tools ready to go by January 2026, it's probably not the way to think about it, right? This is a journey. That's why we were saying, hey, where are you at? Are you AI curious, or are you now a leading the way, pretty much? Okay. So now, with that being said, we have the scoring guide, so you can self-score, right? If you score within 5 to 7, then you know where you stand, right? You're kind of, I don't want to say you're at the bottom, right? But you're the starting point, right, of this journey where you're AI curious, you're testing, some of the solutions, you're trying to see where you can use it. If you got 15 to 21, then hey, good for you, right? You're getting started, doing more, you're actually connecting data and finding early wins. If you do 22 to 28, you're now scaling into actual workflows, right? Automating part of your operation with the use of copilots, assistants, and agents. And lastly, obviously, if you're all the way to 29 and 35, which again, not a lot of companies are going to be there here in 2025. You're leading the way, right? AI is already built in your core strategy, and you're executing with it. So I'm going to give you guys about 30 seconds more just to finish your scoring if you need to, and then we're going to move on to data, right? We're going to talk about some data, reflex, and some questions that we have. Okay, 15 more seconds. All right, so we're going to move on to the next slide here, and this is really our step one, right? So if you guys remember, we're talking about AI maturity and HubSpot data health, right? So the real question, or what you want to ask yourself is, hey, do we, when you look at your own, team, your own company as a whole, do you have data quality frameworks or are you still trying to figure out how to maintain your database and your CRM and how to clean up basic properties in your CRM, right? Again, big difference between having a database that is fully optimized for agents versus having a database where your data is all over the place, where people have their own access, their own permissions, and they're able to go in and start changing properties, move contacts from state to stage without specific rules or reasoning, and automating parts of the business without what we said earlier, right? Without making sure there's a strategy behind it, there's governance behind the automations that are happening, and so on. But let me just touch on some of the things that we see all the time with our clients, right? So you got to understand that we've been doing this for a while, and every time that we go into a project, whether we're onboarding a new team to HubSpot, or whether we're coming into a company that has been using HubSpot but is looking for optimizing the usage or enabling their team more, these are the things that we always see. And typically that's where we start, right? Looking at your data and fixing that foundation, because without data, you're gonna see later in the presentation, without clean and organized data, those AIs that we're discussing today are junk, right? They're not gonna be useful, right? So first, properties, right? We see this all the time where obviously when you set up, you have your standard set of properties that HubSpot gives you, and you may have some very specific custom properties for your business and how you do business, right? However, when you start seeing teams create a bunch of custom fields and there's no naming convention, there's no clear purpose or strategy, that's a red flag. That is 80% of the portals that we go into. They have this issue. Lifecycle stages. This is, we actually published a blueprint, the HubSpot Revenue Recovery Blueprint, about a month ago. Let me know. Send us an email if you want it. It's a great, about 20-page resource that you can go through, and it's fully focused on lifecycle stages and how much money it sits in lifecycle stages when they're not set up properly, and when the right automation is not set up to move those leads through, or to move that prospect to become a lead and become essentially an MQL, SQL, and eventually a paying client, right? We see it all the time. We go into it, and all of a sudden you see 1,000 contacts sitting in lead stage, but hey, they have been visiting your pricing page, they're downloading your assets, they at some point fill out a form and nobody got back to them, and they're still sitting as a lead. But then you have a sales team over here struggling and complaining because they don't have enough leads, right? And they need to drive sales, they need to push for Q4, and we see it, and it's right there. It's like, hey, lifecycle stages, your contacts are stuck in the wrong stage. We need to move them. We need to have the right definition of lifecycle stage, and it needs to be the right setup in HubSpot to make sure that happens. Lead scoring, same thing. We see it all the time where somebody, maybe, I don't want to call out another agency, but somebody came in and did a poor implementation, and they set up a very universal basic lead scoring criteria for your leads. And then you have all these leads that are pretty much ready to have a sales conversation, but they're not meeting the score, right? And we're sitting here kind of waiting for them to meet that score, and that's a no-no, right? That's a big opportunity. Then we see, again, databases that are just bloated with outdated contacts, right? There's not a set way or a set system to enrich the contact list, to enrich your database. So, hey, you have Apollo, maybe you have Seamless, maybe you have some info, but they're not integrated to your system. So if you don't have someone on top of that, then you're going to have a bunch of data. The AI agent is going to try to use that email or that phone number or anything, any context. And guess what? That person does not work in that place anymore, right? So you're wasting, your contacts and your time, and the agent is not doing his job because it's bloated, right? Automation, we all know it. There's always 1,000 workflows that are either turn on or turn off, and there's not a architecture on how those were created or why they were created. So that's a huge one. And then obviously SLAs, right? Like I said, you'll be amazed on how many times we've had gone to a company they're complaining because there's not enough revenue generation, there's not enough sales. And we go back in and we start looking at all these different areas, and all of a sudden it's like, hey, people are filling out your form, they're requesting a demo from your team, and nobody's responding. Why is that? There's no visibility, nobody's getting notified, there's not an SLA on how off or how long do we have to get back to them. So again, it's an opportunity to start to see it, but it's awesome when we can see it and when we can help our clients fix it. So hopefully this gives you an idea of things that you should be hopefully looking at the, after this meeting, you're looking at your CRM and noticing whether you have some of those red flags or some of those gaps in your database. One thing that it was curious, I was in an Apollo. We use Apollo. We're also an Apollo partner, by the way, but we use Apollo for the list building and data enrichment. And one of the stats that caught my attention is that for the regular B2B database, there's about a 25% decay in health, right? The health of your data year over year, right? So if you haven't enriched your database and it's being like, hey, I had this database for 5 years and we haven't enriched it at all, there's an issue there, right? Because a lot of that data is probably outdated, okay? All right. Okay, I want to bring this together. And the first step, when you think about what is the formula here, what is the equation here for HubSpot AI success, it's not about adding new tools, it's about building the right foundation, right? So tier maturity is know where to focus, right? So if you are AI mature, right? So you're not an AI teenager right now. You're mature, right? You're mature. You know what's going on. You know where to focus, right? So as you look at Q4 ending this year, you kind of know where to focus. You kind of know what's working, and you also know your needs and where you need to go to, right? Now, in terms of clean data, right? You have an organized database, right? It's organized. The information in your database is trusted. Like I said, hey, I know for a fact my database is up to date because I just did an enrichment, or I have an automated way where Apollo, assuming for any of these enrichment companies, are continuously enriching data. So as people change jobs or they change emails, whatever happens, I know my data is up to date, right? So before you can automate, predict, or personalize, with these AI agents, you need to set the tone here, and you need to make sure that you're clearly AI mature and that your data is good to go, right? So that is the first step here. Now, I want to take you guys to the second step, right? And I'm going to start moving a little bit faster because I realized that, oh my gosh, time's flying. It's already 11:27 here. So we're going to go ahead and share that 10:27 for Central and obviously 11:27 for Eastern. So here's the reality check, right? And I think this is when we talk to teams, this is where most teams are getting it wrong, is that and I said this earlier, but they jump right into using these tools, right? And you're not setting up the tool for success, right? So I was talking to someone recently. He runs a franchise. He does consulting and he sells franchises for investors and so on. And he wasn't inbound. He was sitting in the prospecting agent demo. He loved it. He was like, "Oh my gosh, this is going to do 90% of my work because I spend so much time researching, sending emails, building the sequences. And if you can do that for me, it's going to save me a ton of time, Oscar." And the reality was that, he didn't set it up right. So he used it. I think he used it once. And he said, "Hey, that thing is junk. Let me know when HubSpot improves the agent." And I asked him, "Hey, is it up? Do you give him the access that you set up your branding kit?" And so on. And the answer was no, right? So in order for those AI agents, we're going to touch them. We're going to go deeper into one agent today. You need to grant it your core data, right? And your core data is, again, your CRM data. If it's not able to access your contacts, companies, your main objects, who is it going to send emails to, right? How is it going to help you, right? If it's not able to then access the context, the structure and structured data, like those customer conversations, the emails, the chats, the call summaries, especially, that is gold. And I need to do a deep dive on just call transcripts because there's so much in there, right? So much data that these agents can use to enrich their output. But if you don't give it that, then it's going to be a waste of time because that agent is going to be it's going to be thinking for you without the right context, and it's going to be sending a bunch of junk emails, or it's going to give you a bunch of junk, right? So the other thing that is huge for anyone that's thinking about using an agent, whether it's a social media agent, customer agent, is that you need to do your core configuration and also set up your data sources, right? So again, I don't know how many companies are trying to use agents right now, but their logos are not set up, right? The brand kit is not set up in HubSpot, right? So there's no logos, there's no colors, there's not a theme, there's not a tone, brand, voice. You see how important that is. Your business profile is missing their ICP, is missing their industry, their missions. Your services are not added to HubSpot, so maybe your team is manually put them in, but if the agent doesn't know what you sell and how to offer it, then how is it going to know, right? And lastly, for the marketers here, brand identity, right? So if you're using the AI, assistant for building your content, so rewriting a piece of copy, for your social media or so on, and it's not working that great for you, I guarantee you that your brand identity is probably not optimized and set up the right way, right? You need to have your messaging pillars, your voice and so on. Everything needs to be set up in your initial configuration in order to enable. Okay. So again, AI can only perform as well as the context that you give it. Okay. All right. So we're going to go into the fun part here. We're going to transition into a live HubSpot walkthrough. So now we're going to move from me just talking to me actually showing you a couple of things here in the profile. So again, from theory to action. So, okay, so here we're going to start and we're going to take a look at the Breeze Studio and Marketplace. So if you look at your left-hand menu, you're going to go to Breeze Studio. You're going to scroll down and you're going to see that Marketplace, or you're going to see the Breeze Studio and the Marketplace. First, let me just touch on Marketplace. If you were attending Inbound or you saw the webinar, you noticed that there's 20 plus new agents that were rolled out at Inbound, right? I don't know how many they are right now because they keep getting added. And there's all kinds, right? There's a company research, there's a block research, there's a customer health agent, there's a cold note taker now that you can add it. There's a sales to fulfillment or sales to operation in-app agent. So you see it right there. All these amazing agents. And remember, you could go into the and start activating some of this, and you may see a fraction of the benefit, but you're not going to realize the full benefit if they're not set up properly, if the data is not where it needs to be, right? And if there's no governance or structure on how to use all these amazing agents, okay? So now we know there's multiple agents. We know that you need to define your strategy before you start using this to your benefit. So now the first thing that I want to touch on is going back to your access settings, right? So we want to set up user permissions, for these agents, right? So here in Breeze Studio, let's go to settings real quick. So you want to review AI and you want to make sure that when you're thinking about access, right, that you're giving people, right, your team, the right access to use these AI tools, right? So make sure that when you're giving it access, that you're setting up your AI for success. And that's why I said, hey, if you don't give it access to your CRM data, to the conversations and so on, the AI is not going to have enough context for you to be useful, for it to be useful. Okay. So with that, again, we're going to go high level, but CRM data, your thousand data, and then you want to give user access to Breeze Assistant, which again is amazing for you to be able to ask the questions and for it to help you point you out in the right direction. Now, if you scroll up, okay, if we go to data sources real quick, okay, this is what I was saying earlier, right? My brand kit, obviously, we're using, this is a demo account for us. So this is not real. We're not sharing our own portal or any clients, but this is huge, right? Because this is where your logo is going to be located, colors, your themes, but especially your brand voice, right? Your brand voice is critical. And why this matters is because this is validating everything that we said before, right? It's your personality that this AI agent is going to use to do outreach, right? So first, when you're looking at your brand voice, you want to look at personality, right? What is the personality you use for that you need it or that you wanted to use for your brand voice, right? Do you want to be a helpful brand, a human brand? Do you want to be a professional brand, right? You can choose, these are the ones that we have, but you can choose up to four, but you have a bunch that you can choose to make sure that it matches as closely as possible to your personality for your company. Same thing for your brand tones, right? You can have a different tone depending on what you do. So depending on, again, what you're going to use the agent for, then you may be able to set up, the tone to be more conversational, energetic, whether you want it to be positive, empathetic. It goes back to just setting it up to making sure that it's specific to your brand. And then what is amazing here is that if you go to advanced settings, and I'm going to touch on this. You can give it your company mission. So again, it's just learning, right? It's trying to see, okay, it shows IQ, this is its mission. Okay, I get it. I can use this to communicate out to prospects. You can give it terms to avoid, right? If you don't want to call, a client, you want to call it a partner. You have this very specific language that you use in your industry. You can give it terms to avoid, and you can also do replacement rules, right? So like I said, maybe in your industry or in your company, we're not going to call prospects, we're going to call them leads, right? And we want to make sure that the AI knows that so it doesn't use it, right? So this is where you can do that. You can also do inclusivity language or rules for your AI, so it knows that, hey, maybe if I'm going to do outreach, I'm going to stay gender neutral. I'm going to avoid slang, acronyms, and so on, and avoid any cultural references, right? So you want to be sensitive to that, and this is AI giving you an opportunity to set up this the right way. Channel specific, touch on this real quick, but hey, the way that we want to be seen in our blog is very different than how we want to sound and look, feel when we're putting a case stuff together. Maybe the blog is more friendly, enthusiastic, and all right, I should be back. Not sure what happened. It just kicked me out, but I should be back. Let's go ahead and resume. All right, so I think let me just double check to make sure. All right. And I'm back. Okay, awesome. All right, so we're back. Hey, technology, right? We're humans. We're not AI, right? So things happen here. All right, so from here, again, you can define your voice and your tone depending on the channel that you want to use. If you want to sound a bit different in your emails than your social, than your case studies and blogs. Now let's go to the company profile very quickly. Okay. And again, this is, if you scroll down a little bit, this is just your basic information. This is typically done when you're setting up your hotspot anyways. But this is, and it also is something that gets automatically updated by hotspot. But again, this is what, as you're thinking about this AI agents, you want to make sure that your information is properly updated. And again, I go back to ICP. If you go to the ICP real quick. Okay. This is where you can create your ICP, right? So hopefully, when you were implemented, or when you got Hotspot implemented for you, your partner agency went through this. This is what we do, right? We set up your ideal customer profile, right? Even if you know it, if you have it offline, if you want to have it in HubSpot. Why is that? Because again, we're giving AI the tools that it needs to do its job, right? If it doesn't know your ICP, it doesn't know what kind of companies it needs to be looking out for, where you're operating, what sort of revenue thresholds they need to be looking out, then it's going to be hard for that agent to prioritize which are which and who to reach out to and so on, right? So again, solid buyer persona information, ICPs, clearly defined, clean database, clearly defined buyer personas, all of that is huge, right? All of that's huge. So my call to action is that if you go into this tab, right, you go to your settings, you scroll down and you find AI, you go into your brand kits, company information, ICP, products, and so on, and you're not seeing your ICP, go to products real quick, products or services. How do you expect your AI to know what you're selling, right? If you don't have a value prop, if you're not letting them know what are the pain points that you're solving as a company, right? If you don't have your products listed with descriptions, it's going to be hard for that AI to know, right? To know exactly what it needs to be pushing or how to find an angle. Remember, right? The AI agent, and we're gonna look at the AI agent here in a second. But the AI agent is going to look at all the information in your CRM, right? So if I'm Oscar, Results IQ, and I'm a target for you, right? Not a target, but an ideal client, a mid-year buyer persona, that AI prospecting agent is going to look at, did Oscar download any demos? Did Oscar look at our pages? Did he interact in social media? Did we reach out to him? Do we have a call transcript? What did he say on the call? Did he say that he needed marketing services? So it's going to look at an angle for it to have an angle and be super personalized to when he does the outreach. It's like, hey, I'm not going to just talk generic stuff. I'm going to say, hey, Oscar, good to talk to you, blah, 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 blah. I noticed that you just switched jobs, but also I noticed that you talked to our sales rep last year, and you mentioned that you really want to go big in SEO. We offer SEO and EO optimization. How can we help you? Here's my booking link. Let's talk next week, right? It's going to look at all that context, right? Emails, downloads, any interactions to build that email outreach. Okay. So hopefully, I know that I'm kind of speeding it up a little bit. I'm realizing that time again is flying, but now we're going to go to your main menu. I know that we already went there, but let's just go back main menu. And although there's a bunch of agents, I show you, right? There's 20 plus agents. The core agents that we're hearing about are the marketing, social media, agent, right? The social post agent. We're hearing about the prospecting agent. This is the agent that is probably most commonly used for your typical B2C, B2B company using HubSpot. You have your customer agents, and then from there on, you have a bunch more, right? We're going to focus real quick on the agent, the prospecting agent setup, so that you can at least take this away and you can look at it, you can play with it. Again, this applies to sales team, but also to the marketing team, right? You may not have a sales team, you may have a small sales team, or you may want to go and show them and say, hey, listen, we have a healthy database, we have a bunch of leads here, you're complaining about leads. Let me help you set up that prospecting agent so that it can do work for you. Remember, this agent is going to work 24/7. You're going to give it some rules and controls, but it's going to be working all the time for you. Okay. So now what you see is that you have, so obviously this is a demo environment, so there's some pre-configured agents here with conditional logics. But if you go back one real quick, you have the dashboard in here. If you scroll down, when you have an agent activated, you will see that there is a dashboard where you can see analytics and you can see how well the agent is working and going through those outcomes, right? Whether, hey, you enrolled 20,000 enrollments, right? 20,000 contacts. Did those emails get delivered? Did they open? Did they get back to you? What is the stats, right? It's always looking at that and it's always optimizing, okay? So if we go back to the first, if we go back to the setup, okay? So we're going to see the first three tabs is going to be the setting profiles. You're going to have your exclusion list and your automated enrollments, right? So what we're going to do here is we're going to create a new profile, right? We're going to act as a new agent. We're going to give it a name. So let's just give it a basic name. Whether it's your marketing, sales agent, whether it's your agent, you're going to see that error. I don't know why this keeps happening, but you just close it. It's not going to affect your setup at all. Okay, so let's give it a name. Let's give it an X description. What's beautiful is that if you want, you can give it your website URL, your company information, or your company domain, I'm sorry, and then it's going to pull information, your selling information from your site directly, right? It's going to analyze all your pages, value prop, if you're talking about your ICP, pain points, it's going to pull it, right? And it's going to complement that ICP, that voice type, all that stuff that we just covered earlier, is going to append it and it's going to complement it, right? So it will automatically pull information like what does your company sell, what are some of the pain points. And again, if that's not clear in your website, then that's what we want to have, the setup initially done well so that it has somewhere to pull from, right? You also want to give the services that you want the agent to sell, right? You don't want it to be super generic. Maybe it's a specific campaign where you're focusing on sales or data hub. We're obviously using HubSpot as the example here, right? So, hey, I'm HubSpot, I'm setting up this agent, and I want to have a campaign that is focused on Sales Hub. What industries do we want to sell to? And do we have personas or job titles that we really want him to zoom into, right? Again, depending on the size of your company, you may have a small database, but we have clients that have 1 million, 1.5 million, 2 million contacts in their database, right? Very large, right? So you want to give it a specific so that it knows where to focus. Okay, let's go to next. Okay, so here's the other thing, right? So you can actually select the identity of who is going to be the sender, right, for the agent to use, right? Do we want that email to come from me, right? Or are we setting up this for the sales team that may have 5, 10, 50 sellers? And do we want that email to come from the contact owner, right? So that the emails, once the agent identifies an opportunity, is coming from the actual owner of that contact, that opportunity. Okay, so you can select it. You can also do a single user like we were showing here, which is what we're going to do in this demo. Go ahead and click next. All right, so now you have your call to action, right? So you want to give it instructions to what is the call to action, the CTA that you wanted to use during this outreach. You can use a calendar link. You can actually attach a document. So hey, here's a case study, or here's a guide, here's a resource for you. So you can use it, you can read it and reach out to us, or you can include an URL, right? So in this case, we're just going to use the pricing page or the product page for HubSpot. And that's the CTA. We want people to go into HubSpot and look at the product that we were offering. All right. Here's another thing. This is huge. Hopefully you hear me here, but you want to set up you want to control how autonomous this AI agent is going to be, this prospecting agent, right? You don't want it to go in and you don't want anyone activating this thing and then all of a sudden it's sending things without your review and approval. Remember, this agent was in beta not too long ago, right? And all of these agents are still in testing phase, right? So you want to make sure that before any emails go out, you can at least initially, right, you can review it and approve it before it goes out automatically. 6 months from now, if you're using this on a regular basis, that agent is going to be trained and ready to go, where you may trust it to do this automatically. But for the moment, let's make sure that you review before sending. The tone, again, you wanna either use your brand voice that is preset for you based on those settings that we show you, or you want to use a specific tone for that outreach. Hey, I want to sound very friendly. Use that. Okay. Lastly, if you're in business, right, you don't want this agent to be sending emails on Sunday night or Friday at 1 a.m, right? You want to be able to give us some sending windows, and also the outreach frequency, right? Hey, send an email. I don't want you to send emails every day. I want you to send every 3 days, every 5 days, and so on. and what is the maximum amount of emails that you want the agent to create and optimize for a specific outreach. Go next. Okay, so here we can go ahead and create now the selling profile. Let's go ahead and create it. Okay, and now we have a new selling profile that we can leverage, right, for that specific outreach, right? Let's go to the exclusion list real quick. Okay, why? So again, I want to connect you guys back to data, right? Life cycle stages. I talk about properties. I talk about just data hygiene in general, right? So imagine this, right? You go and you set this up and it looks beautiful. You create a selling profile and you're about to activate it. You turn it on, and now this agent is going to look at people, and we're going to talk about enrollment here in a second, but it's going to start sending emails to your clients, your competitors, anyone, pretty much anyone that you have in your database, right? So that's why it's important to make sure that your data is clean, organized, segmented, right? So that if you have your clients and you don't want the agent, obviously you don't want the agent to reach out to current clients, then you want to exclude it, right? You want to exclude it. So go ahead and let's go to the automated enrollments. Again, this is where the magic happens, if you ask me, right? And you have different ways of automating enrollment, right? So how do you get, how is the AI going to select who to reach out to? There's an option for you to build a workflow, right? So if you have a very specific idea where, hey, I want to reach out to this specific people when they have a buyer intent, or when this happens, or as soon as I finish a demo and they haven't replied back to me, then you can create that workflow. Let's go back. If you don't have that, then there's trigger base, right? So trigger base is, hey, you know what? I want this prospecting agent to activate, to go ahead and start the outreach when someone, let's just say, views our pricing page. So if I have a contact in our CRM and that person is out there looking at our pricing page or services, I wanted to look at the context and I wanted to set up an outreach sequence and start that sequence right away, right? So that's when a page is viewed. It could be a landing page, or again, it could be a pricing or a service page. It could also be when a form is submitted. So, hey, as soon as this form is submitted, this request, I wanted to go ahead and send out this outreach and start this outreach until we have an actual activation, or we have an actual sales meeting with this person. Okay, so again, it's just doing a lot of heavy work that sometimes us as salespeople or marketers, we have to do manually. Criteria base is amazing in my opinion, right? I think it's not enough people are using it, but criteria base is when, let's just assume that you have, again, a large database, and we have a lot of people that at some point we met with, or we send emails, or we were interacting with these people, and there's been X amount of days since the last engagement. So it could be, hey, let's set this agent up to go look at people that haven't talked to us, that have not engaged with us in more than 3 months or 6 months, and let's roll out this prospecting agent so it can start building these emails, building this super personalized outreach based on that context, right? So for me, hey, that's very useful, right? We talk to a lot of sales teams and marketing teams, and it's hard, right? Because you always have so many things going on at once. But if this agent is working on its own and is looking at people, and as soon as they reach that criteria, hey, it's been 90 days, no contact. All right, let me go look at all the contacts that I have in the CRM. Let me look at all the public information, and now let me create this 3 email or 5 email sequence until this person replies back, right? And either books a meeting or takes an action, right, on a CTA. Okay? Just keep in mind that when you're setting up enrollment, if that person is currently in a sequence, or if there's a open deal or close one deal, the agent is going to skip it. It's not going to do that. Okay? All right. So this is your basic setup, right? Enrollments, you have your overview, you have your enrollments, and you have your analysis here in the workplace, right? The key takeaway from this is that we show you the potential one agent, right? If this agent could be working, doing research looking at that criteria based trigger, right? Looking at how many days I would talk, how many days have passed since we last talked to this prospect. Okay, it's time to reach out, right? Or hey, there's someone looking at our page at 3 in the morning. As soon as that sending window opens up at 8 in the morning Eastern time, I'm gonna send an email, right? How cool is that, right? And he's doing it all on his own, right? Initially, you're gonna have to read those emails, but eventually, you don't have to do that. If we go into here, another thing that I want to highlight is that the review process, right? So if we're looking at this one as an example, hey, this is a conversation is ready to be sent, right? And this is where we can come in and review what the agent is writing for us, right? That initial outreach. So in this case, we have an email that is already personalized for this person, right? We can and we want to review and read, because if you don't read it, then it's going to go out right now, unless it's not, if you don't read it and it's automatically set up to be sent, then it's going to go out on its own. But again, you want to read it and you want to correct it, right? Because every time that you're correcting these emails, your AI agent is learning your style, your tone, how you position things. So once it's corrected, just know that it's learning and is using that as a learning point for the next time that it creates an email for that specific contact and for any other under that selling profile. Okay, so the research agent, like I said, is, well, the prospecting agent is looking at everything that you have in your CRM. If they met with you or your team, if they read a marketing email, if they downloaded a specific resource, it's going to use all that to try to connect the points and put a very good email out. Once it's ready, it's also going to look at external information, so publicly available information, to build up the case, right, for your email. So let's go ahead and approve it. So you can go ahead and send. You can also, if you look at the top right-hand corner, you can also say approve it from here. So you can approve the outreach. But this is essentially what you want to do. It's a time-consuming initially. It is a little bit, but hey, it's better than you're training this agent that's going to do a big part of your team work, right? All right, so let's go back to our presentation here. I realized that we got about 4 minutes left. Again, we're just trying to be super practical and tactical here by showing you what it is, how to set it up. But I'm going to stay a few minutes after 11 here or after 12 to make sure that if you can and you can stay on. If not, then just know that you're going to get the video recap with this, and you're going to get the presentation so that you can finish, the last 10 minutes or so. Shouldn't take more than 10 minutes to finish up here. Now, we talk about those first 3 steps. Right now, we're step 3, right? So this is your AI readiness roadmap, right? So if you look at this roadmap, phase 1 is your audit and foundation, right? So it's looking again at your data and your core systems. Is your data clean? Are your systems unified? Is it trustworthy, right? Do we trust it to use it, right? Something that you should do here, right? When, if we work with you or if you're doing this on your own, this should take, 2 to 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks for you to go in and audit your data and look at your core systems, right? Make sure that you don't skip that, because if you're not auditing and assessing and you don't work on that foundation, there's no need to worry about anything else. Then, I want to talk about phase 2, right? So you want to prioritize your use cases. We show you today the prospecting agent is used by a lot of companies now. And that's the one that I will say that a lot of teams can start with pretty easily, as well as marketing, right? But you choose your use case, right? Out of all the agents, out of all the tools, which are the ones that are going to drive value to your team and to your company? So select it, right? Make sure that you have that as a priority, and make sure that that data, right, that you audited and that you cleaned up is in line with what you're going to use, right? Define, and this is more around architecture, right? But define governance and guardrails. Do we want 50 sales reps to go in and create a bunch of selling profiles and activate a bunch of agents, without permission? No, there needs to be some guardrails and governance to make sure that, this is defined. Who is responsible for activating? Who's responsible for maintaining, right? And how do we measure success, like I said earlier? This shouldn't take more than a week to have that internal discussion and set that up. And lastly, now should be on the last step where, hey, we had that discussion, we audited, we clean data. We prioritize sales for prospecting agent as a use case. We have guardrails and we have clear ownership. Now you can enable and improve continuously. Right now you can go in and activate this agent. Is ongoing, right? Don't, somebody's going to be accountable to looking at this. But again, if you skip the steps and just jump right into activating an AI agent today, it's not going to do what it's supposed to do for you. Okay, so hear me out. It's just that I heard this also the staff from McKinsey, and is that organizations with AI defined governance are 2.5x higher to achieve ROI within the first 6 months, right? So again, it's a little bit of work. It does take a few weeks to set up, but if you do it, then you're going to do it the right way. All right, let's go to the next slide. We're almost done here. Here's some key takeaways, right? AI success is different for every team, right? Whether it's sales, whether it's marketing, whether it's service, right? Each team needs to have its own purpose and in its own goal. That's what we said. Hey, make sure you prioritize, you define ownership, and you define your goals. Adoption, right? Change management and AI adoption is, I want to say, 80% on the configuration and the implementation than anything else. If it's not configured the right way and you go and sell it to a sales team and they go use it and it doesn't work, they're never going to see that tool you're never going to see that tool being used again. So if you make sure that you're configuring this the right way, and if you're not able to do it yourself, then bring an agency like us or let us know if you have any specific questions. We're happy to guide you, but just make sure your adoption is not at a risk because the configuration is done the wrong way. Okay. The other thing is, again, which tools do we try first? You mentioned AI assistants, and there's also agents. Remember, assistants are there to help you. They're not going to do that automatic outreach for you. They're going to help you, maybe assist you with writing that email, but that's about it, right? But an agent that is set up the right way is actually going to act for you. It's going to do the work for you, right? We saw it also, there's a bit of review of those emails initially, but down the road, you think about 6 months down the road, just imagine that AI agent prospecting for your team, doing research, doing that initial outreach cadence, and then for you to start getting those prospects that are ready for that meeting or that conversation right in your inbox, right? That's the beauty of this, right? So you want, depending on where you are, you can use agents and start there, or you can obviously use the assistants or agents. It's up to you, but you got to pick one of the two. Choose your starting point wisely, right? Again, conversations. It shouldn't be a decision that is taken by one single person. It should be more of a leadership conversation and team conversation. And then how do we go about this? What's the strategy? And then what I'll say last is that you want to use AI to deepen those relationships. Again, we see it when there's this huge, massive databases, and it's almost like, hey, you're so disconnected to that database and the people within it, right? And the companies within it. So it's not about using these agents to speed up the work, but it's also how do you unlock some of the conversations that haven't happened through your regular process. Like I said, hey, this guy hasn't engaged in us in a year or 6 months. Let the agent do that work. Let the agent figure out what is the best way to approach this person and to get it back on the phone or in a meeting or just get him back to reply to an email for you. Okay. Now let's go to the next page. Almost done here. Okay. Now, if you're ready to start talking about all this stuff, right? I know that hopefully it was clear, but I know it's also confusing, right? You mentioned agents, assistants, you mentioned all these configurations, tone, style, brand, brand messaging, all this stuff is confusing. So what we're offering to all of you is a AI mapping session, right? So what we do here is we take about 30 minutes or so, sometimes it's less, sometimes it could be more depending on the size of your company. But we have designed a session to look at your setup and pretty quickly tell you what the roadmap should be, where the priorities lie, where the gaps lie, and where there's opportunity. This is a free session, right? So there's no charge for you to get on the phone with us, for us to take a look at your setup and give you some low-hanging fruit for Q4. We're doing a lot of the sessions in Q4 because, again, most teams are thinking about 2026. How do we drive productivity? How do we drive the bottom line and improve it? How can we be more effective? How can we stay up and keep up with all this change, right? And this is the way to do it. Again, there's no charge. Feel free. I'm going to put up a link after this. It's going to be a QR code where you can book directly. But again, we're not just about AI. We're a full stack HubSpot marketing agency. So if you ever need re-onboarding because it wasn't set up the right way, if you need optimization services where, hey, can you come in 90 days and optimize our tech stack? This is a mess, the data is a mess. We're here to help you. We do AI agent setups. We do the audits that I'm telling you to do on your own. We do it for you. So again, we're just, in general, we're here for you. If you have any questions, please reach out. You see my email. You can find me on LinkedIn. You also have this QR code where you can book a meeting directly with us, and we're here to serve you. So with that being said, I just want to emphasize the fact that, hey, this is, time that you could spend anywhere else, but you choose to spend the time with me. I thank you for watching this video, for being present with me. I apologize for the technical issues. Like I said, we're humans here. This is not AI generated. I'm a real human. And again, I just want to thank you all for the time. If you have questions, reach out. If you want to set up the mapping session for your team or for yourself, reach out. We'll set it up for you. And then hopefully we'll see you soon. I do want to let you know one last thing is that we are having another webinar this month. So there's going to be more information coming out. But again, thank you. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you.